Welcome to At the Heart of Caregiving, the podcast for anyone caring for aging loved ones. Whether you're a family caregiver, healthcare pro, or trusted referral partner, we're here to share tips, advice, and real stories to make caregiving less stressful and more rewarding. The voices you'll hear on this podcast are AI generated, but the content is genuine and made just for you. So let's jump in and celebrate the incredible role caregivers play in the lives of seniors. Now, our AI hosts will take it from here.
Welcome to At the Heart of Caregiving. I'm so glad you're here. As part of Caring Senior Service, I really understand the unique joys and challenges that come with supporting our aging loved ones. And since it's that time of year, that time for fresh starts and new beginnings, we're diving into something especially relevant for family caregivers: New Year's resolutions.
It is an interesting time, isn't it? It's full of hope and possibility. But for caregivers, I've noticed, sometimes those resolutions can actually add more stress than relief.
That's so true. We often set these big goals for ourselves. Then life gets in the way, especially the demanding life of caregiving, and we end up feeling defeated or discouraged.
Exactly. It's fascinating. There's actually a lot of research out there that suggests that a gentler approach is far more effective, especially for caregivers.
So instead of aiming for this complete life overhaul, we're talking about finding realistic and sustainable changes that actually make a real difference in our lives. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think a really good starting point is to kind of acknowledge the dual nature of caregiving. It's both incredibly challenging, but also deeply rewarding.
That's an important reminder. I know I often get so caught up in the day-to-day tasks that I forget to pause and appreciate those special moments of connection.
Absolutely. And recognizing both sides of caregiving, both the challenges and the rewards, it helps us set resolutions that actually enhance our well-being as both caregivers and individuals.
Okay, so how do we translate that?
Yeah.
How do we translate that into resolutions that we can actually stick with?
One of the most impactful areas to focus on is self-care. It might seem obvious, but research shows that self-care is the foundation. It's really the foundation for sustainable caregiving.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I can also see how prioritizing yourself as a caregiver might feel impossible when you're juggling so many other responsibilities.
You're absolutely right. It's not always easy, and many caregivers put their own needs last, which unfortunately often leads to burnout. And that burnout ultimately impacts the quality of care they can provide.
So what are some realistic self-care resolutions? Resolutions that caregivers can actually implement.
Even small changes can make a big impact. Just carving out a few minutes each day for relaxation can be incredibly rejuvenating.
I love that. So instead of aiming for a full spa day, maybe it's just enjoying a cup of tea in silence or reading a chapter in a book.
Exactly. These little micro moments of self-care can have a cumulative effect on your well-being.
So true. Another area I think we often neglect as caregivers is pursuing those personal interests. Those hobbies and passions that kind of get pushed aside.
It's so important to reclaim those activities, even if it's just for a short time each week, whether it's gardening, painting, listening to music, anything that really nourishes your soul.
This really resonates with me. I noticed that when I prioritize creative outlets in my own life, I have more energy and patience for my caregiving responsibilities.
Absolutely. And that renewed energy benefits everyone involved. And speaking of support, another crucial aspect of self-care is seeking connection with others, connecting with others who understand what you're going through.
It's so easy to feel isolated as a caregiver, but there's so many resources available to connect with others who get it.
Yeah, there are local caregiver support groups, online forums, organizations like Caring Senior Service that offer guidance and support.
And don't underestimate the power of reaching out to friends and family, those who can offer a listening ear or a helping hand.
Exactly. You don't have to go through this alone. There's strength in seeking and accepting support.
Which brings us to another important resolution: setting boundaries.
This is a critical piece of self-care that I think often gets overlooked. Setting limits can feel uncomfortable, especially with loved ones, but it's crucial for protecting your well-being.
So what are some practical tips for setting boundaries?
Yeah. Communication is key. Clearly communicate your limits, both to yourself and to others. And this might include learning to say no when necessary, even if it feels difficult at first.
And it's about recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of your own needs to effectively care for others.
Exactly. Delegation can also be a powerful tool for setting boundaries. Whenever possible, involve other family members, friends, or even professionals to share the caregiving responsibilities.
Even those small acts of assistance can really lighten your load and free up some time and energy for you.
Which leads us to another important resolution, enhancing communication.
That's something that resonates deeply with me. I think so much of caregiving revolves around clear and compassionate communication. Communication with everyone involved.
It's about fostering open dialogue with the care recipient, with family members, and with healthcare professionals.
When everyone is on the same page, it creates a more supportive and harmonious environment.
Exactly. It helps prevent misunderstandings, and it facilitates better decision-making.
So far, we've talked about self-care, support, boundaries, communication, all incredibly important aspects of caregiving.
But let's not forget the role of technology. Technology can actually make this journey a bit easier. There are some really innovative tools out there that can help streamline tasks and reduce stress.
I'm all for working smarter, not harder. So tell me, what are some examples?
Well, there are medication reminder apps to help ensure that medications are taken on time.
And virtual health platforms for remote doctor consultations, which can save so much time and energy.
And there are online resources specifically for caregivers, offering information support and even a sense of community.
It seems like embracing technology can make a significant difference.
Absolutely. And speaking of resources, another important resolution is to educate yourself. Educate yourself about your loved one's condition and the available support.
Knowledge is power. Staying informed helps us make the best possible decisions for our loved ones and advocate for their needs.
Exactly. There are so many ways to access this knowledge: attending workshops, reading articles, exploring online resources, and staying in close communication with healthcare professionals.
And organizations like Caring Senior Service offer resources like newsletters, websites, and social media platforms with valuable information and support.
Right. And speaking of feeling empowered, another important resolution is to celebrate those small wins.
I love this one. It's so easy to get bogged down by the challenges of caregiving and forget to acknowledge our victories no matter how small.
But those small wins add up. It could be a successful doctor's appointment, a good day with your loved one, or even just a moment of shared laughter.
Or even carving out those 15 minutes for yourself. Taking the time to acknowledge those moments helps us stay resilient and focus on the positive aspects of caregiving.
It's about finding those glimmers of joy amidst the difficulties. Now, shifting gears a bit, I noticed several sources highlighting the need to kind of reframe how we approach resolutions altogether.
Well, that's intriguing. What do you mean?
Well, instead of focusing on what we're giving up, they encourage us to think about what we're giving to ourselves.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of feeling deprived, we're choosing to nourish and support our own well-being.
Exactly. And that brings us to an interesting concept I came across. It's called Me Time Monday.
Me Time Monday. Tell me more.
It's a commitment to dedicating Mondays to self-care activities. It may sound simple, but research from the Monday campaigns shows that people are actually more likely to stick to healthy habits if they start them on a Monday.
Wow, so there's a scientific basis for it.
It's not just a random day, there's data backing it up.
I'm definitely more open to trying it now.
And the best part is that Me Time Monday is totally customizable. You get to choose activities that bring you joy and nourish your soul.
So it's not about fitting into a specific mold. It's about choosing what truly replenishes you.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Even small acts of self-care can make a big difference.
I love that. So how do we make this Me Time Monday a reality? What are some practical steps for us busy caregivers?
Well, first, identify activities that you genuinely enjoy. Activities that promote relaxation and rejuvenation. It could be taking a walk in nature, spending time on a hobby, or simply relaxing with a good book.
And then schedule it in. Make it a non-negotiable appointment with yourself.
Right. Start small and gradually increase the time dedicated to self-care as you get comfortable. Maybe it's just 15 minutes at first. Then you expand to 30 minutes or an hour.
It's about finding a pace that feels sustainable and enjoyable. And I imagine tracking your progress can also help with accountability.
Absolutely. Mark it on your calendar or share your commitment with a friend. Having that support can make a difference.
And speaking of support, don't hesitate to reach out to your network, your friends, your family, or even a caregiver support group.
They can provide encouragement and hold you accountable on your self-care journey. And finally, practice mindfulness during your Me Time Monday.
Mindfulness, what do you mean by that?
It's about being fully present in the experience. If you're taking a walk, notice the sights, the sounds, the sensations around you. If you're reading, savor each word. And allow yourself to be transported to another world.
It's about being present in the moment.
Yeah.
And truly absorbing the benefits of your self-care practice.
Exactly. By doing so, you'll not only enhance your own well-being, but also bring that renewed energy and positivity back to your caregiving role.
This Me Time Monday concept is really resonating with me.
Me too. And I think it's a great example of how we can reframe resolutions to be more supportive and less stressful.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this part of our conversation about New Year's resolutions for family caregivers,
There's one more point I want to highlight.
I'm all ears. What is it?
It's the importance of approaching resolutions with a spirit of self-compassion.
Oh, that's so important. It's easy to be hard on ourselves as caregivers.
We set these high standards for ourselves
Yeah.
and then beat ourselves up when we fall short. But the truth is, caregiving is a marathon, not a sprint.
There will be days, weeks, even months when it feels overwhelming.
And that's okay. It's human to struggle. And it's human to make mistakes.
What matters is offering ourselves the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a dear friend.
Exactly. When we approach ourselves with compassion, we're more likely to persevere through challenges and emerge even stronger.
And that resilience is essential for both our well-being and the well-being of those we care for. So as we move into this new year,
Let's be gentle with ourselves
let's celebrate our victories.
and embrace the journey, one step at a time.
And remember, even the smallest acts of self-care can create a more positive and fulfilling experience for both ourselves and those we love.
Well said. I think those are some fantastic insights to keep in mind as we explore some additional perspectives on New Year's resolutions for caregivers.
We'll explore some specific advice from the Alzheimer's Association. Their unique perspective adds another layer of understanding to this conversation.
So the Alzheimer's Association, they really emphasize this idea of reframing resolutions, reframing them as opportunities for personal growth.
I love that. It's not just about, checking things off a list,
Right.
but using this time of year as a springboard for positive change.
Exactly. And they actually offer some really great advice on how to make those changes stick.
I'm all ears. What's their secret?
Well, one of the things they suggest is to break down those resolutions into smaller, more manageable steps.
That makes so much sense. It feels much less overwhelming
Yeah.
to focus on one small change at a time instead of trying to do a complete overhaul.
Right. And they also highlight the importance of writing down those goals and tracking your progress along the way.
It's a classic strategy for a reason. It really helped to stay accountable and motivated.
And they also recommend finding a support system, people to cheer you on and encourage you.
Whether it's a friend, family member, or caregiver support group, having people who believe in us can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And finally, they stress the importance of celebrating successes, no matter how small.
It's about recognizing our strength and resilience and giving ourselves credit for all the hard work we do.
And by acknowledging those victories, we reinforce those positive habits and set ourselves up for continued success.
I love that. It's a reminder that even amidst the challenges of caregiving, there's always room for joy and celebration.
Right. And that brings us to another insightful perspective I wanted to share.
Okay, I'm ready. What is it?
Well, while I was doing some research for this deep dive, I came across a quote from Carol Bradley Bursack. She's a caregiver and author who's written extensively about the joys and challenges of this role.
Oh, I've heard of her. She's a wealth of knowledge and inspiration for caregivers.
She said, and I quote, "Remember, happiness isn't about perfection. It's about having realistic expectations."
Wow. That is a powerful reminder.
Yeah.
For caregivers who often set incredibly high standards for themselves.
It's so true. We strive for the impossible and then inevitably feel like we're falling short.
But by adjusting our expectations to be more in line with the realities of caregiving,
We can free ourselves from that burden of perfectionism and create space for more joy and contentment.
it's about embracing the messiness of life and finding those moments of peace and happiness amidst the chaos.
And that's a beautiful goal to strive for in the new year.
Absolutely. A goal that will serve us well, not just in our caregiving roles, but in all aspects of our lives.
You know, as we reflect on these different perspectives, I'm struck by a common thread running through all of them.
Me too. What is it?
Kindness. Kindness toward ourselves, kindness towards those we care for, and kindness towards the journey itself.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing that caregiving is a demanding path, an often unpredictable path.
And that we're all doing the best we can with the resources we have.
Exactly. And by approaching this role with a spirit of kindness, we create a more positive and fulfilling experience for everyone involved.
It's a powerful reminder as we step into this new year.
I agree. It's a reminder that even amidst the challenges, There's always room for compassion and grace.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired and ready to embrace these New Year's resolutions with a renewed sense of purpose.
Me too. And hopefully our listeners are feeling the same way.
Before we wrap up, there's one more piece of advice I wanted to share that I found particularly helpful.
Oh, I'm always up for more wisdom. What is it?
It comes from a therapist who specializes in working with caregivers, and she emphasizes the importance of focusing on what you can control instead of what you can't.
That's a great point. It's so easy to get caught up in things outside our control, which just adds to our stress and anxiety.
Exactly. She suggests focusing on things like your attitude, your self-care routines, and seeking support when needed.
That's a powerful reminder. We may not be able to control everything about our caregiving situation, but we can control how we respond and how we take care of ourselves in the process.
Exactly. It's about finding that sense of agency and empowerment within a challenging situation.
And building on that theme of empowerment, I think it's worth revisiting the idea of seeking and accepting support.
You're so right. We touched on this earlier, but it's important enough to emphasize again. Far too often, caregivers try to go it alone, feeling like they need to be strong and self-sufficient all the time.
And that can be incredibly isolating and lead to burnout. It's so important to remember that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and self-awareness.
It's about recognizing that we don't have to carry this burden alone, and that there's an entire network of support available to us.
So true. And that support can come from various sources: family, friends, support groups, local organizations, and even online communities.
The Alzheimer's Association, for example, has a fantastic resource called the Community Resource Finder, which can help you connect with support groups and other services in your area.
That's a great starting point. And many local senior centers and community organizations also offer caregiver support groups.
And don't underestimate the power of online communities. There are so many online forums and support groups specifically for caregivers.
It's a great way to connect with people who truly understand what you're going through and can offer encouragement and advice. And even if joining a formal group isn't your thing, simply reaching out to a trusted friend or family member can make a world of difference.
It's about finding those people who can listen without judgment and offer a shoulder to lean on. And remember, support can come in many forms.
It might be practical help, like with errands or transportation, or it might be emotional support and a listening ear.
The key is to identify what you need and be open to receiving support from others.
And on that note of being open to receiving, I think it's important to emphasize allowing others to care for you.
This can be a challenge for caregivers who are used to being the ones providing care, but it's crucial to remember that you deserve care and support just as much as the person you're caring for.
And that allowing others to help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of self-awareness and self-compassion. It's about acknowledging that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that receiving care allows you to refill your own reserves.
Exactly. It's a beautiful cycle of giving and receiving, and it's essential for sustainable caregiving.
So as we wrap up this part of our conversation about New Year's resolutions,
I want to leave our listeners with this thought.
remember that you're not alone on this journey.
There's an entire community of caregivers who understand and care, and there are so many resources available to support you.
We encourage you to reach out, connect with others, and prioritize your own well-being in the new year.
And remember,
Kindness is key.
kindness to yourself, kindness to those you care for, and kindness to the journey itself. But before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about allowing others to care for you.
Yes, it's such a crucial point, and one that can be so difficult for caregivers to really embrace. We're so used to being the caregivers that accepting care for ourselves can feel uncomfortable or even selfish.
It's understandable, but that mindset can unfortunately lead to burnout and exhaustion. It's so vital to remember that you deserve care and support just as much as the person you're caring for.
Absolutely. And allowing others to help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength and self-awareness. It's acknowledging that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that receiving care allows you to refill your own reserves.
It's a beautiful cycle of giving and receiving, and it's essential for sustainable caregiving. Think of it like this. You wouldn't expect a car to run without fuel, right?
That's a great analogy. We need to refuel ourselves to keep going.
Exactly. And that fuel can come in many forms. A listening ear from a friend, help with errands from a family member, or respite care that gives you a much-needed break.
And sometimes simply acknowledging our need for care and expressing it to others can be the first step toward receiving the support we need.
You're so right. It's about allowing those who love and care about you to step in and share the load. Remember, you don't have to do this alone.
And as we think about asking for and receiving help, I think it's important to remember the Alzheimer's Association's advice about focusing on what we can control.
Yes, that's such a powerful reminder. We may not be able to control every aspect of our caregiving situation or the challenges that come with it, but we can control our responses and how we take care of ourselves throughout the process.
And that sense of agency, even within a challenging situation, can make a huge difference in our overall well-being.
Absolutely. And it ties back to so many of the resolutions we've discussed today. Setting realistic goals, prioritizing self-care, and seeking support.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into New Year's resolutions for family caregivers, what are some key takeaways our listeners can carry with them?
First and foremost, be kind to yourself. This journey is demanding, and it's okay to acknowledge the challenges and embrace the messiness of it all. Celebrate those small victories, no matter how insignificant they may seem.
And remember that self-care isn't selfish. It's essential. Even just a few minutes each day, dedicated to activities you enjoy, can make a world of difference.
Don't be afraid to ask for and accept help. There's strength in recognizing your limits and allowing others to support you.
Focus on what you can control, your attitude, your responses, your commitment to self-care. And remember, you are not alone on this journey.
We hope this deep dive has provided you with some practical tips, inspiring reminders, and a renewed sense of hope as you navigate the year ahead.
Thank you for joining us on this first episode of At the Heart of Caregiving. We're here to support you every step of the way.
We look forward to connecting with you again soon. Until then, take good care of yourselves and those you love.